All right. So how is everybody doing? Any new questions pop up between when we last spoke? So yesterday, for most of you? Okay. As I said yesterday, we are going to get into 1B today, which is our introduction to Google Sheets / Excel. The reason we prioritize Google Sheets is because it's free, right? You get access to it as part of your Gmail account through the school. Where Excel, a great program and honestly more robust program, it's still you have to pay for it, right? So we're not going to focus on that. So let me share my screen and we will get going. So what we're looking at here is the notebook page for 1B, and this is an order form. And their website uses a spreadsheet to calculate the variable cost of the order, including sales tax and delivery fee. So we're going to open a new Google Sheet and we're going to recreate this tab. So like I said, today I'm going to operate as if you have never seen Google Sheets in your entire life. So if this feels a little slow for you, I'm sorry, I understand, but I want to try to make sure that that I go at a pace that's kind of comfortable for the most of you. In the future, I will warn you when we're going to do Google Sheets in class, and my expectation is that you will create the layout ahead of time, and then we'll just go through the mechanics together. So in the future, I will tell you, like, hey, see this layout here, the whole thing, have that built before class. And so then we're not spending the time during class building it out, and instead we're focusing on the actual, commands and the math that we're doing. So before we can get into even answering the question, we need to build this, okay? So let me change screens. So what you're looking at here is just a folder within my Google Drive. I'm going to press new, and under new, I'm going to choose sheets. And you can have a blank spreadsheet or from a template. We're going from a blank one, okay? So when you're creating your spreadsheet, we've got a lot of commands, but the first thing we want to do is go up to untitled spreadsheet and we're going to name it. And so you can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it 1B order form. It's all up to you. I'm not going to impose on you. You'd be like 1B stupid sheet. I have no idea. You choose. So 1B food order form part 1, because it's the first of the two that we're going to do. Okay. So when we're looking at both Excel and at Google Sheets, there's some things that we need to know. We need to know that the columns are labeled with letters and the rows are labeled with numbers. And what that tells us is that we end up with locations. So let me blow this up so it's easier for you to see. So you can see here, I have clicked on this first cell location. It is in column A, row 1. We can also see right here that it's referencing cell location A1. It always lists the column first, then the row. So when we're talking about locations, again, it's going to give you a letter and then a number, which is going to say go to that column and then to that row. Okay. So if you look at our layout, it says Sam Soups and Sandwiches or order form. And so let me see if I can get this all on one window for you. Give me 1 second. Easier to have everything to be seen at once instead of trying to switch back and forth, which can get confusing. Okay, are you guys seeing the notebook page? Okay, beautiful. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. So we want to enter this whole title, Sam's Soups and Sandwiches order form. Now it looks like it goes across from column A to column D. We're gonna click in just that cell location of A1 first, and we're gonna type it in, okay? So as I'm typing, you can see it looks as if it's extending across to column C, but it's really not. All of this data is still contained in A1, and we want it to go all the way over to D. So we're going to click in A1 with our mouse. We're going to hold the left mouse key, and we're going to slide right until column D is highlighted. Doing this is going to allow us to highlight all 4 of those columns that are in row 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to merge those together. So I'm going to go here to this more. With using a full size, you probably won't have it this way, but in order for us to get to what we need to do, it needs to have that. So let's see if it'll actually, of course, it's being difficult. There we go. So the button that we want is this one. It's called Merge Cells. So this is going to allow us to merge those cells together. So once I merge them, we can see that now it's going across to D. You can notice also that the words seem to be centered in there. So if we click on that location as well, I want to center them. So then we're going to choose horizontal, under the align. We're going to choose the middle one to center. And then you can see that it's in the middle. The last thing we need to do is we need to put color in here. The nice thing about using color is it allows you to easily reference things visually, right? When we look at adding color, we're going to use this little paint bucket fill color. There's some really amazing colors up here. Fantastic colors, top 10 colors. Please don't use them in your spreadsheet though, because magenta, great color. This bright yellow, also a great color. But when you put that on a screen and you're looking at it for a long time, it can hurt your eyes. And so predominantly, I stay within these first 2 rows here of muted colors. Those are going to be the easiest for you to view. And overall, I'm in this first one here. So it's going to be that yellow color. And you'll notice when I click off, it is yellow now, or I don't know, some shade of beige-ish yellow. And then if you're like, well, that still doesn't quite look like the order form you have over there, it's because the words are not bolded. And so we're going to go back up here. Again, there's a lot you can do just in this top tab, and we're going to click on the B, and that's going to make it bold. The very last thing is we need to put a border around it. The border button is here. It looks like a window pane. And so we're going to choose border, and I'm just going to choose all borders because that'll allow us to have it fully wrapped. So if I click off, finally, that looks like we want it to look, right? So when you're building these, you're going to want to make sure that you're intentional in matching up what is on the layout I'm providing you with what you're putting in your Google Sheet. Okay, so you notice here, row 2 is blank, right? I did that intentionally. Again, it allows our eye to see more easily, but it is also going to then mean that when we go to put these things in, I'm going to give you formulas. You're going to want to make sure you skip that row 2. So we're going to go down to row 3, and we're just going to start copying that stuff over. Okay, so this is going to be a moment of quiet on my end as I'm just filling in. I'm going to fill in item quantity, cost per item, total cost, and then I'm going to do all the items over here as well. Okay, I'm not going to get into the actual cost because I'm going to show you a command for that. But right now we're just going to do everything in blue. So in row 3, and all the stuff in green, which is in column A. Gonna wait a minute in case people are filling in their own. I don't wanna go ahead too fast. All right, so again, when we're filling out our Google Sheet as compared to the layout on the right, obviously we see differences. One, the things are centered. Two, it's a different color. The words are bolden. There's borders around everything. And then also you'll notice here, total cost per item is stacked on top of each other, but I didn't take two rows and do something. And that comes from something called text wrapping. So I'm going to go back to A3, so where the word item is. I'm going to highlight and drag to the right to highlight all four of those. And I'm going to go up to more. So again, we want to, if we think about going from left to right, we want those words to be bold. We want the color to be some shade of blue. We want there to be borders. We don't want to merge because we want them to have all their own individual things. We do want the words to be centered. And then the last thing is we want to wrap the text. So if you look down here on the right, it's got this arrow that looks like it's turning. And this has to do with how the words fill the space, fill the cell. So if we click on this drop-down menu, this option here is overflow. That means it just goes past that edge if there's nothing there. And so we can see that cost per item continuing to extend beyond column D. But if I were to write in column E, we wouldn't see that anymore. So instead we want to wrap it. And by wrapping it, that increases automatically the height of the row. And that's how we're getting that height change. If we go down to from turkey sandwich down through cookie. So again, clicking in, let me get rid of this so you can see. I'm going to click in location A4 and hold my mouse key down, drag straight down. So I'm just highlighting the things in column A. And I go up to my commands and we think about what do we want? Well, again, we want them to be bold. We want the fill to be green. We want the borders to exist. And let's see, looks like we want it to be left justified. So we've got that already. And we want to wrap the text. And that adjusts for us as well. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions about what I've done so far? Okay. So now we just need to enter our quantities. So clicking here, it looks like I need to do 2. If I use my enter key, that will automatically get me to go down to the next one. So I can just enter those values. Now, I do this a lot. I go fast. I make mistakes. So make sure as you're copying this stuff over, because we will eventually have much bigger spreadsheets. It's really easy to make a mistake doing this, okay? When we get to the cost per item, I know that the layout sheet has dollar signs. I'm not going to enter those in. Instead, I'm going to just enter the numbers as decimal numbers, meaning the first is, it was $6.95 a piece. So I'm going to put in 6.95. And then I'm going to do 7.95, 6.95. So you'll notice as I'm putting those in as decimal numbers, so like 5.50 is just 5.5, and $1.50 is 1.5, and $1 is just $1. But we want them to be monetary amounts. So I'm going to click back in on C4 where that $6.95 is for the turkey sandwich. I'm going to hold my mouse key down and drag down until I get to 0.75. And then I'm going to go up top to the dollar sign that we see here, and it says format as currency. The reason I didn't put a dollar sign in, like I didn't use the dollar sign command on the keyboard as I was filling it out, is because we actually use the dollar sign key to create commands as we're doing our formulas. And so it's better to format as currency and have it work that way, as opposed to trying to put a dollar sign in to indicate that it's a monetary amount. So I'm going to format it as currency. It automatically changes all those values to money values. And then you can also see it turn the 5.5 into 550. And the same with the dollar became 1.00 for $1. So the last thing we need to do in this main part to set it up is we need to add the borders. So I'm going to go back to B4, holding my mouse key down. I'm going to scroll to the right, and then I'm going to scroll down until all of those locations are highlighted. Going back up top, I will add my borders, and that part is done. So one last area I need to build before I can actually do any of the commands we're trying to do with this. And it's this bottom part here with the subtotal, the tax, the delivery fee, and the total. Okay, so you'll want to enter those in. Again, you'll notice that I skipped row 13. It starts in row 14 under column C. Okay, so I'm going to pause there, let people get caught up, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so now that we have like the whole layout done, right, we can actually move forward with doing the things that we want to do. So Max and his friends have placed an order. They've ordered 2 turkey sandwiches, 4 roast beef, 1 ham, 1 veggie wrap, 2 chilies, 5 soup, blah, 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 right? This is everything that they're ordering. And those are the costs per each of the items. So we want to come up with a total cost per item. So your notebook page says, in order to calculate the total, Max and his coworkers, what calculations do we need to perform? So Bailey, yes, to answer your question, you are making your own Google Sheet. You don't have to do it in the moment right now. You can just watch me do it if it's because I hear from a lot of students like it's too much to try to watch me and do it at the same time. So you can make it on your own if you want after class, or you can switch back and forth while I'm doing it. It's your choice. So what calculations do we need to do in order to come up with their total, in order to come up with the total that they owe, this final total here? This is for you all to share with me. What do you think? What are the different, if you're thinking about, like if you were just doing this calculation on your own, don't think about using Google Sheets or anything like that, but what would we need to do?
You need to multiply B4 times C4, and your sum would be in D4.
Right, so we need to take the quantity times the cost per item to get our subtotal for each of those items, right? Yeah, so we're gonna have to multiply these values together. Good. And so once we get all of those, then what do we need to do?
Probably like create an equation that multiplies the B row by the C row and then puts the answer in the D row.
Yeah. So not even just thinking about in those terms of, because I'm glad you're already like looking at those locations and putting those pieces together. But if we just break it down into, if we were trying to get money from our friends, because we all like place this order, we'd want to know how much we're spending overall per item, and then we need to just add that whole total up, right?
Subtotal.
Yeah, so we would want to come up with a subtotal, and that subtotal is going to be the sum of all of these. Then we need to assess the tax, right? They're paying sales tax of 8%, which I recognize in Montana is not a thing, but here in Tennessee it is a thing. And let me tell you, I've been crying ever since, but we don't pay state income tax, so like it evens out. And then we have the delivery fee. And so then we have to find the overall total, which is going to be the sum of all of those things, right? So keeping those pieces in mind, we want to look at number 2 says, what formula can we enter in D4 to calculate the total cost for the turkey sandwiches? So it's really good that we're thinking about these things not as in numbers, but as in where are they spatially within the Google Sheet. And so if I want to know the total that we're spending on turkey sandwiches, I know I have 2 of them and they're $6.95 a piece. So if we were doing this not in Google Sheets, we'd be like, oh, we'll just do 2 times $6.95. Like that's the amount that we're doing. But I'm lazy. I like to do things with the smallest amount of effort possible, which means we want to use some formulas. And so we know that we want to take the 2 that's in B4, we want to multiply it by the 695 that's in C4, and we want it to give us some amount here in D4. So when we're entering these formulas, we always have to start with an equal sign. That equal sign is telling us what we want to do. It's saying like, oh, you want this location to equal to something else. Now, Google Sheets, super helpful. They will often give you suggestions. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. In this situation, you can see here, it says, if I press the tab key, it's going to enter in this B4 times C4, and it's already telling me what that amount will be, 1390. Now, it's not that I don't like their suggestion. It's a great suggestion. It's exactly what I'm going to end up doing, but I want to practice as a group putting this stuff in. So here you have 2 options. You can actually type the letter B and the number 4. You'll notice when that it's talking about a specific cell location, you'll notice I didn't even have to worry about capitalizing it. That's not important. Excel and Google Sheets recognizes that. So you see how it turned like this goldenrod yellow, and it's kind of hard to see, but it actually highlighted my location as well. And I'm going to press the multiplication key, which is that asterisk. If you have a normal keyboard, it's going to be over on the 9 key area above the numbers. If you do not have a normal keyboard, it's going to be on the number 8 key, like on and so you'll want to use the shift to get to it. So we'll do the asterisk, and then you can click C4, or you can even click on the location too. That's what's really nice. You don't have to type everything. So we're going to do B4 times C4, and I'm going to press enter. And again, Google Sheets, they want us to be lazy. They're like, let me help you do this. And so it's giving me this suggestion of autofill. Once we get used to doing this, take their suggestion of autofilling. I want to practice autofilling with you though, so that if it doesn't come up with the suggestion in the future, you know what you need to do. So I'm going to ignore this. We're rejecting the suggestion. We're going to come back to this location here. Okay. And I'm going to take my mouse. I'm going to go to the very corner until my cursor turns. You can see how it starts to turn into like this black plus sign. I'm going to double click there, and it will fill down for me as far as I have completed on the left-hand side. The reason why this is important that it's only going as far as what I have on the left-hand side is because, again, I only wanted to go down to row 12. This is also why I skipped a row when completing this, because if I had all that subtotal and all that business right up underneath the cookies, when it would have filled down, it would have then started pulling those values that don't have anything associated with it, and it would have given us zeros or errors or things like that. And so instead, we only wanted to fill that down until we get to the cookies, and then we're done. The next thing you'll notice is as we have filled that value down, it's adjusted those numbers. It's kept column B and column C, but it's adjusted those numbers for us. So if we look back at our notebook page, it says, how do you fill down this formula? We talked about that. We talked about the cell references. And then it says, number 5 says, what built-in function can be used in cell D14? Now, I want to find the subtotal, right? So the definition of the subtotal is the total amount before tax or before tip. It's before anything else has been added on. So when we think about finding a subtotal, that is a sum, right? We're adding everything together. And so we want to add these up. There's a couple of different ways we can do that. We can literally do an equal sign and then do this value plus this value plus this value plus this, and keep going that way, right? Now, when you have a large amount of stuff that you're adding up, that can be tedious. So instead, we have the sum function. Now, again, Google Sheets is being super helpful, and they're like, oh, we'll just do this. Well, what does this even mean? So again, I'm going to ignore that. What we're saying is we want to find the sum, so SUM, and then we're going to do a parenthesis, and we want to find the sum from this first one, the turkey sandwich is D4. So I clicked in D4. I'm going to hold my left mouse key down. I'm going to slide all the way down until D12 is highlighted. So you can see it's giving me from D4 to D12 with this colon in between. I'm going to end the parenthesis and I'm going to press enter. So again, what it's doing is it's finding the sum of that amount. Okay, so something I find students really like to just use the sum function all the time. Like it's one of those functions that gets in your brain. You're like, oh, I gotta type sum every time. Only use this when you're actually adding a range of values. Okay, so the only time we use the sum function is when we are adding a range of values. So the next piece is when we need to figure out how much they are paying in tax. So tax is 8%. That is 8% of the subtotal. So we're going to do equals. Now, 8% is 0.08. So we need to enter that as a decimal number. And we're going to multiply that by what's in the subtotal. The reason why I'm using that cell location D14 is so that if somebody after the fact went, oh, wait, I wanted another ham sandwich. And if we went up to the actual sheet above and changed those values, because everything is based off the cell locations, this would automatically adjust as well. So again, you'll see here I did 0.08 times D14, not 0.08 times 9590. So I'm going to press enter. So we're paying $7.67 in tax. And then we need to find the total. So I want you to go ahead and practice finding the total. If you're not doing this Google Sheet on your own, you can just add them up on a calculator and send me your answer in a direct message, please. Okay, so we want to add the subtotal, the tax, and the delivery fee, right? So again, there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We always want to start with the equal sign. We can just click on the locations. So if I wanted to do, I want D14, plus D15 plus D16, right? And so, again, we can do it that way, press enter. Oops. Oh, there we go. And we get 106.57, okay? Also, we could have used that sum function instead. So if I went back here, I could have said the sum, and then again, from D14 down to D16, okay? That's gonna work too. So either of those will work, okay? So if we go back to our notebook sheet, obviously we talked about how you calculate the total. And then it says, now that the order has arrived, Max needs to figure out how much everyone owes him. It says create a new tab in your workbook and use the following spreadsheet to figure out everyone's total. So this stuff here, all of this is in a new tab. And so what that looks like is when we look in our Google Sheet here, we have this plus sign. This is where you're adding a sheet. This is all within a workbook. The whole thing, the file is called a workbook, and then you have sheets within it. So we're going to add a sheet. If we go back to the first sheet, you can rename this. There's two ways you can rename it. You can double click on it, which will highlight the sheet name. And then we'll just say order form. And if we go to sheet 2 and double click on that, we're going to say individual. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Fun fact about me, I'm a terrible speller, like absolutely atrocious. So I mean, feel free to judge me if you want, but I just be prepared. There will be many things that get spelled incorrectly as I work through things. And you know how it is, it's like you go to spell something, you've spelled it a million times, but you're suddenly on the spot when you're teaching and your brain goes, oh, that's not how that's spelled, and you second guess every single thing. So hopefully that's individual. So we are going to copy this whole thing over. Okay, so that's going to be a big task, obviously. You can pull some of it from your first sheet. You'll notice that we're going to go from column A all the way over to column K, right? And then we've got these pieces, this in the middle, you can see we skip C, and then it goes from Max down to Ryan. So I'm going to work on this real fast, see if I can get it done, because we are getting tight on time. Because aren't we? Let me make sure I'm not crazy. We have, what do we go to? Oh, no, we have like another half hour, right? Okay. It's really, so typically I usually teach classes that start on the hour, like the whole hour. So when I start on the half hour, I have a very bad habit of releasing everybody early because I think that I'm going over on time when I'm not really. So I'm going to copy this over. I would like you to try copying it over too if you're working on your own, and then we'll go from there. Oh, if you're going to copy something, I probably should give you that information too. So like I said, you can copy some of the stuff from your first sheet and pull it over. So for example, we want to copy the item, turkey sandwich, all this business. So when I go to my sheet in the first sheet in this workbook, I'm going to click on item. I'm going to hold my mouse key and I'm going to drag down. Okay. And then I'm going to do control. I'm going to hold the control and the letter C. And that will allow me to copy that content so that when I go over to my second one, and again, we want to have it in, it starts in column A, row 3. So right here, I'm going to do Control and V, and that will paste that stuff over for me. You can also use, because I want to do the cost per item, so I'm going to go to column C, holding my mouse key, dragging down, right clicking. You can also copy this way, right? So we can do copy and then go over to our other sheet, clicking in B3, right clicking, and you can paste. Okay, so those are 2 ways that you can copy and paste from sheet to sheet. Oh, one thing I want to show you, if you are trying to, oops, here, hold on. So you can see how I'm scrolling and it says G5 is equal to that amount. If you just press enter, it'll keep that value there. If you're trying to copy, but you want to be able to see what you're referencing, so like I'm trying to scroll to the right, but I want to know, am I giving Todd amounts for turkey sandwich, roast beef? What am I actually trying to give him amount? So there's this idea of freezing a pane. So up here, we've got our this bar right here. You can see how my cursor turns to a hand. If I click on that and pull it to the right, it gets mad at me because of the fact that the food order is merged. So this thing right here, because that has been merged, it's not letting me freeze that pane for this moment, because it's going to make my life easier to be able to see that. I'm going to unmerge this. And then by unmerging it, I can now pull this over and it will freeze column A so that when I scroll to the right, it holds it there. And I'm able to make sure I'm putting those values in the right spot. Instead of going back and forth and wasting my time looking at the things. Okay, so we want to find everybody's individual totals, right? So we can tell that Max ordered a turkey sandwich and a soda and 2 cookies, right? So if we were to do this by hand, we would go, okay, well, so we know that Max, now I don't want you to enter anything. I'm just breaking down what we're gonna do, and I'll talk about how I have a better way to do this, okay? So just starting off, we're like, okay, well, Max ordered 1 turkey sandwich, so we have D4, and we're gonna multiply it by his cost, B4. I'm like, okay, well, he also had 1 soda, and we're gonna multiply it by the cost of the soda, which is $1.50. And then he also had 2 cookies, and we're gonna multiply it by the cost for each of the cookies, right? So this is certainly one way to do this, okay? What we're noticing here is that we have the amount that Max is ordering times the price of each of those items, right? We're multiplying the quantity times the cost and then adding those products up, right? But as I've told you before, I'm real lazy and I like to let Google Sheets do the work for me. And so this formula that I've entered in here, completely valid. You can totally use it. It's not going to be something that saves us time though. Here, let me blow it up so you can see it a little bit easier, because I know that it's right. So we have D4 times B4 plus D10 times B10 plus D12 times B12. Again, completely valid formula. But then we'd have to go to Christine, and now instead of D's, we have to use E's, right? And so then we'd have to enter this in all the different times. So instead, I'm going to delete this out. And if we think about what we're trying to do, is we're trying to take each person's quantity and multiply it by the cost per item. So if we look at our notebook, there is this idea of fixed cell locations or fixed cell references. So this is why I did not use the $ when I was typing out the monetary amounts for each of the items. And instead I used that format of currency, because $ allow us to fix cell locations. So in Excel and Google, a $ is placed before either a column, letter, row number, or both in order to tell the program to fix a particular position. So for example, when I say $A2, that fixes column A, but allows the row number to change. As opposed to do B $4, it allows the column to change, but it fixes it at row 4. As opposed to if I put a $ in front of this, the column number or the column letter, excuse me, and a $ in front of the row number, that will fix both the column and the row. So C, $C, $6 fixes column C and row 6. So what we want to do is we want to fix everything that's in row B, but allow it to be multiplied by stuff over here that changes. So, and then we want to add those as well. So if we think about the 2 operations I said there, we want to multiply and we want to add, right? So product, the word product represents multiplication. The product of 2 values is multiplying those 2 values together. And then the sum is adding those up. So when you put those together, you get a function called the sum product function. So we're going to do equals. Clicking right here with Max, we're going to do equals. We're going to say sum product. And then we're going to do parentheses. So now we need to tell it, the first part of this argument is the first thing that we're going to be multiplying by. And so that's going to be from B4 all the way down to B12. So I can highlight those, but I remember I want to fix them. So I have to go back up to my command here, and I'm going to put a $ in front of this B, a $ in front of this 4, a dollar sign in front of this B, and a dollar sign in front of this 12. So what that's doing is it's completely fixing the first value that we multiply by in column B. After that, we're going to put a comma, and this is going to select the next range that we're multiplying those numbers by, which is everything that Max is getting. Now, because it changes as we move down, I'm going to go over to where Max is, and I'm going to click in D4 because that's the first location. Holding my mouse key, I'm going to go down through D12. Now, because we want these values to change as we move along with each person, we're not going to put any dollar signs in with the second group of values. So I'm going to end my parenthesis there, and that is going to be my full formula. That's a big formula, so I'm going to hold off. Let me know if I need to make it bigger for you to write down before I move forward with the next step. Okay, so you notice when I do the sum product, I'm going to press enter, and it gives me $9.95. That's how much Max owes before his tax, his portion of the tax and his portion of the delivery fee. Okay. Again, I'm lazy. I like to do the least number of steps. So I'm going to just move down to the tax for Max, and then we'll do the delivery fee, and then we'll look at the total. And then once we have all of those, we can fill this all the way to the right, and it will fill in for everybody else. So the first thing we want to do is we want to format this as currency. So you can see how I have the subtotal in D13 highlighted. So I'm going to go up top, format it as currency. Now we're going to assess the tax. This is just like we did on the previous one. We want to find 8% of this. So we'll do equals 0.08 times. And then again, we always want to use cell locations because we're trying to assess the tax on that value that's in D13. So it looks like Max owes 80 cents. Now the delivery fee. What do we know about the delivery fee?
$3.
It was $3. It was $3 for the whole thing, right? And so how many people do we have here? There's 8 people, right? Including Max. So we need to spread that $3 out over all 8 people. So we're going to do equals 3 divided by 8 because each of them is paying 1/8 of the delivery fee. We'll press enter. And again, see how it gives me these autofill suggestions? They're not always accurate. This isn't like, why would I just want to put that value in a second time? So you will find that sometimes you have to reject their suggestions. So it's possible that you might only say 0.38 here and not 0.375. If you didn't want to see this full decimal amount, you can always decrease your decimal places. But then also when you format it as currency, it knows that you want to see a to the nearest penny, right? Nearest penny is two decimal places. That doesn't mean that Google Sheets is not storing that full value. It's just displaying it in a way that makes sense because we're talking about money, okay? And so the very last thing to figure out what Max owes, we're going to find the sum of these. So we're going to use that sum function, or again, you can just do the sum of those values. So again, they're not being helpful. They're giving you only from D14 to D15. We're like, no, that forgets this part here. We need all of these pieces. So we're going to do sum, parenthesis, and then we're going to go from D13 down to D15. I'm going to end my parenthesis and press enter. And so we know that Max owes $11.12 for his lunch, what he's paying for lunch, which includes his portion of the delivery fee and his tax. Which now that we have like Venmo and all those things, great. It's easy to like send somebody that amount if we were, you know, collecting it that way. I'm sure everybody would be really mad at Max if he didn't give him the full 12 cents, right? So
Can you explain how to do the delivery fee one again?
yes,
I was a little bit behind and
that's okay. Let me delete this out. So we know if we look back from the order form, the delivery fee was $3, right? It was $3 for everybody. So if we go to their individual amount, we're gonna do equals, and I'm just gonna do 3 divided by 8 because there was 8 individuals that are ordering all together. So when I press enter, it automatically calculated that value. If I want to format it just as a number, I'm trying to increase it. So what you see originally is that it's 0.375, right? So clicking on here, if I go up to the $sign, I'm going to format it as currency, and that turns it into the 38 cents. That doesn't mean it's not actually 0.375 cents. It really is. But because we're trying to view things as monetary amounts, it's rounding that value off for us to see it as if it's 38 cents.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I was overcomplicating it.
I do that all the time. So, like I said, I'm lazy. And so let me scan out, minus out so we can see this whole thing a little bit. So I want to be able to take everything I did here for Max and I want to apply it to everybody down to Ryan, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to D13 here where that subtotal is. I'm going to hold my mouse key down and slide down until I have all the way through D16 highlighted, okay? And then I'm going to go right here to where that circle is, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to hold my mouse key, and I'm going to drag it horizontally. And it oftentimes likes to go over, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can see how I've got that dotted line that's going all the way through column K, row 6. When I release that, it fills in everybody's amounts all the way over. It filled in automatically everybody's subtotal, everybody's portion of the tax they owe. You can see that 38 cents is consistent across every single person because they're all paying 1/8 of that delivery fee. And then their subtotals obviously are changing. I mean, their overall total, excuse me, is changing because they all ordered different things. The only thing that's weird is that I forgot that I wanted to have borders around that row 16. So if you wanted to put the borders in, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, we had frozen this column, so we can pull that back to the edge. And then if we wanted to remerge these values, we can. And then it looks the way we were trying to get it to look. So the homework assignment for 1B, you'll notice that there are questions about Google Sheets and commands in Google Sheets. So don't be surprised when you see those questions. Those are custom questions, and so you're not going to have multiple versions of them to answer. So if you get it wrong, either rewatch the video or reach out to me or something like that, because again, some of these are going to be, they don't have multiple options, like multiple attempts, because they're all custom questions. It's not like we've had with the other homework problems like in 1A. So let's see, where are we at in our schedule? What did I do with my schedule? Here it is. So today is Thursday, obviously. That's the last day for our class for this week. If we look ahead, On Tuesday of next week, we have the practice quiz due. And so the practice quiz is, like I said, yesterday, I don't want you to get hung up on whether you get it right or wrong. I'm not going to have you take that quiz more than once, because your grade on it is not going to be calculated as an accuracy grade. It's going to be counted as a completion grade, because it gives me a baseline as to where I know everybody's kind of skills are coming in. So if you struggle with something on it, that's okay. I don't want you to be worried that like, oh, well, I'm going to fail the class because I didn't know how to do this thing. No, it's just me trying to figure out, what am I going to have to put emphasis on later in the semester as I'm going through these concepts that are related to that, okay? So when you're completing your practice quiz, make sure you record all of your written work. You're going to scan and upload that written work. And so when we're looking at where do we put our written work in our Eagle Online shell, let me share our course again. You can see here, we're in our course shell. If we go to assignments, the first set that comes up is the assignment drop boxes for our projects. The second set is the assignment drop box for our written work, okay, for quizzes. So you would click on the practice quiz written work, and then you're going to want to add a file, okay? So when we click on add a file, you have two options. You can add your file from your computer, or you can add your file from Google Drive. Again, this is why I have us link our Google Drive with Eagle Online, and why you're using Adobe Scan and having your school Gmail account be a link to your Adobe Scan, because when you upload from Adobe Scan, it goes straight to your Google Drive, and then you pull in here. Like it creates a nice seamless thing, right? So you can choose Google Drive, and you gotta wait, you might get mad at me. So then it's giving me all these files to choose from. If I look just in the first file, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to choose something. Let's see, we'll go with this. Choose this, and I'm going to upload it. Now, if you want to write me a note, hey, I really struggled with blah, 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 blah. This is where you would put that comment, okay? I'm then going to press submit. One thing to make sure though, when you are sharing things off of your Google Drive, make sure I'm able to view it. Like if you're sharing something, make sure that the setting is to view. It's not a big deal when you're submitting documents, and I'll go over this later when we start submitting Google Sheets as part of what we're doing. And that has to do with when we copy the link, it has to say can view or can comment or whatever. But I'm not going to submit this, because I will say, once you submit something, you can't delete it. Okay, so we all mess up and submit something that we didn't want to submit. Just go ahead and submit a second document and just say, Aaron, ignore the first document, do this one instead, in the comment section, and I'll ignore the first document and I'll just grade the second one. Okay, so I'm going to press cancel, because I don't want to submit anything because I can't get rid of it. And so we're going to say, oh wait, are you sure? And I'm going to say don't submit. Okay, and so again, that's where you're going to find the folders in order to submit your written work. Another thing I wanted to draw your attention to, as I told you before, I do record the lectures. So you can go back and look at them after the fact. If you look at our table of contents, all the way down at the bottom, it says past Zoom lectures, and then you're going to see it listed in here. The dates will be in chronological order. So 8:29, I did the intro in 1A, 8:30, I finished 1A. And then after we're done here, once Zoom tells me that our recording has been processed, I upload it to YouTube and it comes in and it's a whole thing, right? So then we'll say Math 94 lecture from 8:31, 1B. So again, this is nice that you can go back and view what I did in case you missed something, or if you were sick and you weren't able to make it to class and you wanted to know, like, what was she talking about with this? Again, go back and watch the lecture. They're in there, okay? So this is where you find them. Again, it's in our list of content all the way down at the bottom. under unit 5, it says past Zoom lectures, and that's where you'll find them. Okay. So that's everything I have. Yeah. Any questions for me? Okay. Well, I hope you guys all have a good weekend. It's going to be Labor Day weekend. I hope it's nice in Montana. I am going to be sweating.
It's only like 55 degrees right now.
Oh God, I'm so jealous. Actually, today it's been beautiful. It's like 75 out right now, and the humidity is relatively low from what it has been. So we actually have like all of our windows open, which, you know, during middle of end of August, September, like you don't open your windows in Tennessee. It's way too humid. That's disgusting. Yeah. But today I could definitely feel the like, it's coming, fall is coming. So again, to reference, a question I got was, where do we know what assignments are due? There's 2 places we can see that. In the first week, under the teaching and due date calendar here, we've got, it shows, I have what's due. So you can see today, the 31st, we don't have anything due. Tomorrow, you do have homework 1 is due, 1A, excuse me. And then Tuesday, we've got the practice quiz. And then Friday, you'll have homework. Oh, is my screen's not showing. That's not helpful. That is not helpful at all. There we go. So again, let's back her up. In the first week, in the content, right? So in the content section, the first week, going to the teaching and due date calendar. We can see again here where it's coming, that we've got 1A due. Then on Tuesday, we've got the practice quiz due. And then on Friday, we're going to have 1B due. If you are in that thing that we use for homework and quizzes, Pearson, let me go in through there. I'll show you where you can see how stuff is due there. So give me a minute to sign into all the things. Oh, come on. Let's see if I can make it. Sometimes it used to be allow me to view it as a, oh, view student home. There we go. That's what I wanted to view. So when you scroll in or when you sign in, you're going to see this. And one of the things I don't like about this is that it gives you this calendar, but it's really easy to miss due dates here and not know what's coming up. So instead, under here, it will give current assignments and it'll tell you when it's due. But on the left-hand side, if you click on assignments, it will give you a list of your assignments. So you've got homework 1A is due 9/1, so tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. And then you've got your practice quiz due on September 5th. And then 1B, September 8th, 1C, September 12th, and 1D, September 13th. So those are 2 places that you can see due dates. Excuse me, I suggest checking both. And I mean, I'm always going to be mentioning the due dates. I'm always going to be updating each week. I'll give a list of what's due. But things like your projects, those are not going to be listed here in Pearson in my math lab. Those are only going to be listed on the due date calendar. And obviously I will mention them as well. So the due date calendar, it will always have everything on it. So that's why I went back and merged those together. So again, in the first week, teaching and due date calendar, we've got all as one document. Everything's on there. Okay. All right, more questions. All right, if you have not had a chance, make sure that you contribute to the welcome discussion Again, we're all living in this weird virtual world together, so it's good to know a little bit about one another. And that's it. Yeah, make sure you do your homework, right? First homework assignment is due tomorrow. Also, I encourage you to do your practice quiz, right? Get that out of the way so you're not stressing about it over the weekend. And then you can have 3 days off or 4 days off.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone.